I'm Terry with twohubs.com, and these are the Rotor Q-Rings. By now, many of you have seen the Rotor Q-Rings being utilized in the Pro Peloton, and especially by the Cervelo test team. I wanted to share my experiences with the Q-Rings and also explain the concept. The past 6 months I've been on the Q-Rings, which have helped me get through a knee injury I've had in the past 4 years, and also I've noticed a lot of other benefits to the Q-Ring. So let's take a few minutes to go into the concepts and the various configurations and the settings that really set these elliptical chain rings apart from everything in the past. Now, to understand what the Q-Rings do for you, you need to take a step back and look at the dynamics of the pedal stroke. The center axis of the pedal stroke, the head of your femur here, is feet above above the center of the bottom bracket and also behind. And what happens is, as you're pedaling through your stroke, there is basically a dead spot, a vulnerable point in your pedal stroke, where your knee is vulnerable and also where you're not producing power. And the idea with the Q-Rings is, with their elliptical size here, this 53 actually stretches to a 56 here, and then in the smallest point it is 51. When you're in your power zone here, the chain ring is basically taking advantage of that and delivering more power, and it is in its smaller diameter when you approach the dead spot, helping you accelerate through that portion of the pedal stroke to keep a more consistent, smoother power profile. So that's basically what the Q-Rings are trying to accomplish there. The Q-Rings have 5 different positions for both the inner and outer chain ring. This basically allows you to control when the power is going to come on. Rotor recommends most people stay in setting 3 here. And for people that run a very steep seat tube angle, or some triathletes and some time trialists, to shift to a setting 4. So what's happening here is you shift further forward here. You want the power to basically shift, the power zone to shift with your position on the bike. For time trialists running a very aggressive setup with a very steep seat tube angle, Rotor would recommend you looking into the 5 setting here. So, but that is basically how the settings work, and one thing to note is you can fine-tune each chain ring. You don't need to have them both in the same adjustment indicator. For instance, if you typically sit down and grind up hills and you're always trying to get on top of your gear and you're often running out of gears in the climb, well, you might want to consider getting into setting 4 to help you get over the top of the gear here in the small ring. And if you typically run in the stay seated in the back of the saddle and without a very high cadence, very power riders, you're going to basically be leaving the big chain ring here in setting 3. So that's how the adjustments work. And as far as the big chain ring goes, if you are running a lower cadence and sitting back in the saddle, you can leave that in a setting 3 to keep your leg in the power zone a little bit longer. But that's how the adjustments work. You can mix and match, and the true benefit to Rotor comes in this adjustability. You need to fine-tune them for your riding style. Now, as I previously mentioned, the Q-Rings helped me get through a knee injury I've had for the past few years. Additionally, I've noticed reduced cramping. I'm somebody that can cramp within sometimes an hour if I'm really pushing myself, and I noticed a dramatic difference in cramping and actually lactic acid accumulation, which is another thing that Rotor explains as a benefit to the Q-Rings. A simple way to explain how these rings feel is riding the Q-Rings and getting them set up in the ideal position. Going back to a round ring feels almost as if I'm pedaling in squares, whereas the Q-Rings feel like a complete circle, which seems counterintuitive because they're not shaped like a circle. But that's so far I've been absolutely impressed with them, and by far one of the best tricks I've added here onto my bike. In regards to the Q-Rings compatibility, you can get them for most cranksets out there. 110 compact BCD, 130mm BCD for SRAM and Shimano, and 135mm for Campagnolo. You can also get them with a solid outer chainring called the TT Aero chainring, for those of you looking for that extra bit of cutting edge through the wind. But they're also obviously available for mountain bike in both double and triple various cranks. I think Rotor's got them all covered. So, should you have any questions about the Q-Rings or want to jump into the concept a little bit more with me, you can contact me, Terry at twohubs.com. That's TERRY at twohubs.com. Other than that, thanks for stopping by twohubs.com. We look forward to seeing you out on the road.